Good morning. We're almost starting a new semester, just like that. Unbelievable. Before I introduce Dr. Sroda to you, I kind of just want to give you a heads up on some other workshops in case some of those might not be in your line of thinking right now. But tomorrow and Wednesday, we will have two workshops that will focus on civics. I was part of the time trial, I guess, in a way, for the civics endeavor last semester, and it is a neat tool. I've really taken great advantage of it, and if you are unsure as to what civics is, I know Leslie here knows all about it.
No, I'm actually going to go to that workshop.
Good.
I know a little about it.
I think it will help you to help your students better with that element. I'm going to put in a shameless plug for me, as well as two of my colleagues. The Faculty Teaching Fellows are doing a session tomorrow, Top 3 Tips for the Spring Semester. And I think one of them, he's still trying to figure out exactly what to offer, but I think it will be a great, informative as well as probably with those two, it'll be entertaining. And then Lightning Strikes panel, Dr. Stacy Stone is leading that one, and I'm really eager. Are you a part of that panel too? I'm eager to see what y'all will come up with and offer some ideas. And then on Thursday, how the Orca can help, not the Orca whale, but the Office of Research and Creative Activity, Dr. David Pizzo. He's going to kind of give us some ideas as to how we can get our students more on top of various research and creative activity endeavors. So I would really encourage you to look at those and see if you can fit those into your schedule this week. Dr. Sue Sroda is going to talk to us about syllabus. We were just talking briefly right before the start of today's workshop as to how exciting the syllabus really is, but it is our protection blanket in a lot of ways. And the presentation that she did at our International Student Conference back in November, she has modified that for today's presentation. So I think you will get a great deal of knowledge and maybe new ways of looking at that syllabus. We tend to dread it about this time, but really it is something, it's an important part of the course. So Dr. Sroda.
Thanks. Yes. I'm so tickled anybody showed up at all. I kind of recharged on the title, Syllabus Workshop. Oh, that'll bring them in January. That'll bring them in. Because we're in the middle of the school year, right? So, are you brand new? No, you're not brand new. Faith is brand new, but you're not teaching. Are you teaching this semester?
No.
No, so she's got a respite. Melody, Mel's been here forever, and that's good. So I guess part of it was, what do we say about syllabi that we don't sort of dread? How do we talk about them in any helpful way to you guys? So first, I'd like to ask a question like, what do you hope to get out of today's session? Like, is there a question on your mind? Is there an issue that you've been thinking about? Did you just happen to have an hour of free time and you can't get in your office for some reason? Or
Well, I'm in the process. So I only teach one course a year in the spring quarter. And so it seems like every time I prep for it, I'm redoing the class.
that's good.
And so in the process, of course, I have to redo the syllabus. So I just thought it might be helpful to see what you might have to say, because you're so wise and thoughtful. I mean, all my experience with you have good things to say. So I thought I should hear what you have to say about a syllabus, like the syllabi, in case I need to incorporate something that I don't know that I already have, that I should have, or I'm putting stuff in that I don't need to put in, or whatever.
Okay.
Whatever words of wisdom, that's what I came to glean.
Okay. Well, I'll try to do as much of that as I can, but this is really more of a workshop, and you'll see why in a minute when I talk about the model that I've used to sort of think about syllabi. How about you? I'm sorry.
My name is Priscilla.
Hi.
My last name will change to McGrawy as soon as I go and get my Social Security card and all that updated. I got married in the fall semester.
Congratulations!
Thank you. I teach athletic training and exercise science, and I teach anywhere between 4 and 6 classes a semester. And this is my 4th university and my shortest syllabi I've ever had. And so I feel like things are missing here that I had to put in at other universities. But every semester I get to this point and I'm like, well, I forget what I forgot to put in. Like, during the semester I'm like, oh, that would have been better if I had it in my syllabus. But I'm never good enough at remembering that part. So I came to see if what you were going to present on might ring a bell to what I've forgotten to forget to put in there.
All right, great. All right. Well, I'm a little old school, so here's a handout. It'll also help us when we get to the interactive part of the. So I thought I'd start with the actual syllabus. Let me get out of here and call up this. And is that going to show? I don't use. Woo! Okay, this is the expanded version of the thing in the box on the first page. And I'll tell you what's obvious. Murray State University actually has a format for its syllabi, and it is required by and approved by Academic Council. The last revision was in May, and both the undergraduate and the graduate template are available on the Provost website in the Academic Council link as a Word document. The one difference, oops, sorry, I'm going to get out of here. Oops, now I turned it off. Oops. Oh, there we go. Page down. I'm just looking at my computer. There. The things I left out were the wording, the excessively long wording. You can tell them that's my opinion. The excessively long wording of the revised academic honesty policy, which goes on for at least 3/4 of a page, but we must include it word for word, and the non-discrimination policy, which was just revised, I think. This is the most recent revision, this here, and all that you can copy and paste, you can download the Word document, and even if nobody tells you, we have to do it this way.
Okay, so this is something that I take issue with, and I know you don't have anything to do with it, but nobody told me this.
Yes, that is a problem. That is a problem, and that I tell my faculty every semester, and even if they get tired, the people who have heard the message over and over and over, there are always one or two who have said, really?
So how does news about a new syllabus format get disseminated?
What generally happens is, if it has to, like the last two, if it has to do with academic honesty, that news came out of the provost office. It usually comes during the summer. To chairs of the departments, and the chairs are responsible for disseminating the information. So whether or not chairs do that depends on how this fits in with how the chairs see it. Because some chairs assume that, well, it'll be up there and everybody can look, or everybody can get it. So yeah, that the number one issue now it's too late, you're here already, but the number one problem here at this university is communication between units. That we are always looking for better ways for things that are really important for people to know, to learn, without bombarding them with information. And that's kind of like what a syllabus is. A syllabus is that balance.
So do you recommend, especially for me, since I'm really essentially teaching as an adjunct, and I don't really even interact with anybody in the College of Ed, even though my course is from the College of Ed.
Okay.
Do you recommend that I should just go to the provost office in January when I start, or December when I start working on my syllabus, and grab the format that's there?
I would.
Okay.
I would, or at least look at the way it's, because here's what's really funny, and this is where this also, so if your department doesn't catch it, somebody does. If you know anyone who's tenure track, for example, a department may go, okay, this is great, good teaching evals, all this, and then somebody at the college or university says, the little numbers on their syllabi are wrong. They actually, they're really strict about this. Not only does this have to be in your syllabus, it has to be in Roman numeral XI, right? You're supposed to do now there's places to add extra stuff, but what they want is they want a syllabus, and this is like our culture as teachers and administration culture, which is where some of this comes out of. Even though teachers love that, these weird edicts come down that say, we're looking for it this way, because this is how you talked about it as a security blanket. Mm-hmm. You know, the one thing about the university is that when you follow this, they have your back. But people who don't hand out a syllabus at all, believe it or not, it happens. People who truncate or leave out parts of the syllabus, people who put stuff in, like there will be 3, for example, there will be 3 exams, and they go, oh, I'm adding a 4th. You know, you can't technically do that without students having a really good chance of overturning the grade in a challenge. And this is kind of your roadmap for the semester. And not only are students bound by it, you can't miss this many, this is how you be honest, this is how, it binds us as well. This is the agreement. Now, we find things, because you taught for years, it's always easy to cut out assignments. You know, students never complain about that. Oh, I want one less quiz. Anybody want the quiz? No. Okay. So these are sort of in terms of nitty gritty, this is sort of the sections that we work with. The other question is about, like Priscilla said, how long to make it? How much information should go in here? In our department, the only thing we strongly encourage, though we don't technically require it yet, is we require a course schedule. Though sometimes those are very vague. They say, you know, week 1, chapter 1, week 2, chapter 2, and sometimes they're very, very long in terms of you have to do an ethno-linguistic observation, and here's the assignment already. So one thing you have to think about is, do I need a 12-page syllabus? Will that give the information to my students that we need, or do I have a 2-page syllabus? And in which case, how do students find out what information runs the course? And I can't tell you. I mean, because I don't know. I don't know about your courses. I mean, I vacillate between both. I am not a 15-page syllabus person because students don't read it. If I do have a longer syllabus, I always give a syllabus quiz as one of my, what I would do, it's worth 1 percentage point, which for a student who is an 89, average at the end of the year would make it a 90. So we give them an A, so that's the motivation. It's worth 1, it's not weighted the way the other quizzes are, and it's open syllabus. But yeah, I give them a quiz. If it's a long syllabus, that's just my technique, but other people have other techniques that'll work. So that's sort of it. It's what we're required to put in, what we want to put in, and then how to use what we put in. That's kind of where I'm hoping we'll end up with today, is some techniques. And my technique comes from, if you know me at all, in the first 5 minutes of knowing me, I probably announced that I'm a linguist, because I work in the Department of English and Philosophy, but my training is in linguistics, and it's in ESL teacher training. And so a lot of my perspectives and a lot of my theoretical models come from intercultural communication and that sort of research. And so this cultural assimilator comes from my training. It was first applied to international students. I'm waving at the wrong thing. So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. Are there any questions about the parts of the syllabus? What do you do in terms of other stuff that you add in? Where are your assignment descriptions?
I put that in a separate document called, assignment descriptions.
Yeah.
I do put that under evaluation and grading procedures. But like for instance, in my graduate strategic communications course, I'll put that, 50% of your grade is a campaign, and I'll describe what that means, and then all that. But then as far as assignments, I use a separate document, just like a course outline. So I don't attach it to the syllabus at all.
Okay.
I have a section at the end, I don't know what number it is, where I go into more detail about what I expect from the essay, from the discussion, And so this is all online, so in Canvas, because I don't want to put it in Canvas because it'll be, and they won't read it. So that's why. So I put a very brief description of the assignment and say for more information on what I expect, go to Syllabus and put a link to the syllabus.
Good. Yeah, that's what I do too, all the time. Then you'll do a 5-page analysis and the details will be posted, right? Or given out separately. What do you do, Priscilla?
I do kind of a mixture, depending on what class, if it's an online class or if it's a hybrid class or if it's a face-to-face. Depends on what goes in the syllabus and what doesn't. I weight all my grades, so like final exams, I'm looking at a syllabus right now, are worth 11%, and I'm mean. I make it worth more than just 10, so that way you can't keep the same letter grade by not taking the final exam.
Do you tell them that?
Yeah.
Good.
So I make it 11, so that way you can't just not attend. So you'll drop a whole letter grade over lack of attendance or showing up late to the final, because I don't allow on test days late attendance. And that's all in my attendance policy as well. And so I show the weight of the grades, and then I give a lot of quizzes, Canvas quizzes, and face-to-face. And so I explain Canvas quizzes, you can take them late, you can open book, open note, I don't care, just get the quiz done. Face-to-face, that's at will, no prompting from me, no book, no nothing, no retake, no late attendance, nothing. I give you 5 minutes to take the quiz, and if you walk in at 4 minutes left, you have 1 minute to take the quiz, or 4 minutes into class. And so I explain kind of my nitpickiness on the syllabus just to protect me. And then, like, what the actual assignment is going to entail comes in a different document. So,
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. I guess our question is, though, how do we get students to read it? How do we get students to follow it? How do we make it an enforceable, not just enforceable, but a usable document? Every department has, yay. Yay. Okay. Every department has its own requirements for, are you allowed to, for example, the course description has to come right out of the course catalog. There's no changing, but every department has different guidelines as to whether or not you can change the objectives or not. Some say you have to have these 3 objectives, some say you have to have all the objectives that every other section is offering, so that if they take a course from Leslie, they get, or from me, they get the same overall achievement, but that's really done at the level of the department. So you can ask them. What's kind of interesting is, I think one of the differences is the difference between the way we perceive the syllabus and the way the students perceive the syllabus. You know, do we refer to it, once again, it's in the syllabus. What do we do when blah, blah, blah? How many of these are there going to be? It's in the syllabus. What's the policy board? It's in the syllabus. It's in the, you know, and we get like that anger action inside out. We get like, you seen that cartoon? Anyway, it's cute. It's cute. But yeah, I mean, that's it. How do we get this to be a usable document? Especially, how do we avoid problems? Problems that we are pretty sure might happen. This is a very proactive model, this assimilator model. Because to me, you know, I used to think of a syllabus as a protective blanket. And then I thought of it for a while as a roadmap, and I'm all into metaphor. If you, once again, have talked to me for 6 minutes, then you know I'm totally into models and metaphor. And now I just kind of think of it as sort of a tool for information, like a reference book. But students need to know how to use a syllabus, because otherwise they will never look at it again. Even if you give them a syllabus quiz at the beginning of the semester, the minute that quiz is over, they will never look at it again. And so the question is, 1, and this is only you can answer this, do you really want them to look at it again? Because as much as it pains me, I know people who write a syllabus and that the instructor never looks at it again. You know, something I did because my department threatened to fire me if I didn't turn it in. And so I wrote a syllabus, but that's not really what I'm doing. You know, it's between you and me, you and the students gang up against the university, and they do something totally different. But let's assume that the syllabus has the policies in it that are useful, but not all policies, because even a 4-page syllabus is really long. We have no expectations for students to memorize a syllabus. I totally understand that. The question is, how do we make the parts we really want them to pay attention to salient to them? And so what I want to suggest is this thing, and it's super easy, it's called a culture assimilator. And so they've been doing this a lot since the 1980s. I think 1985 was the time it was first proposed, and it was actually proposed just at the end. Now, mid-1980s, we were still 5 years away from the 1970s, you know, the flower children and we're all going to be able to get together if we just keep talking enough and sort of policies. And so the culture assimilator was originally created for people who were traveling overseas, particularly business people. But like other entities like the Peace Corps bought into it in a big way. And so it's a a problem-answer instrument that really worked well for a little while, and then all of a sudden they just dropped out of all mention. It was years before I heard mention again of a culture assimilator, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, so culture, we're going to use the kind of quasi-standard definition of it's a set of beliefs shared by a group of people, and I will send you this PowerPoint, I will send you a copy of the handout, I'll give you whatever you want, if you want. So you could take notes, you don't have to. But a culture is any set of beliefs shared by a group of people. It includes the rules and norms, here's where syllabi come in, for acceptable behavior which come from those beliefs. So even though we don't actually overtly talk a lot about, okay, you're here in college, you're here in an intro to linguistics class, what does that mean? What do we all believe? Students never do. But we do say, here are the rules. Here are the rules. This many absences. Here are the due dates. Here's the attendance policy. Here's the late policy. Here's this, here's that. And we have to share that in order for that to work. And it's better if we all understand them the same way. So, if you look on your handout, in the second page, third page. Hold on a sec. I'll show you, first I'm going to go do this first. First I'm going to show you the time when in early 2000s, culture assimilators came back to me in a way because I had to teach the intercultural communication class, which I hadn't taught in a while. And Mike Morgan, if you know Mike Morgan, he's like Mr. Ethnographic Phenomenology guy. So he used culture assimilators, and they work really well. This is one that we tell the grad students to do them. They're going to be teachers of English as a foreign language. They want people to acculturate. Either students acculturate to their country of origin or help students acculturate to the U.S. So what we have is these two students, Nadia and Anna, are real people. That is not their real name. I use this example with permission. What you do is you write the scenario, and then you give the options. So we're just going to run through it quick because then I'll show you how it works with syllabi. This really happened to them. Most of our really good assimilators cannot be predicted outside of the context. So if you were to email me and say, wow, Sue, I'd like a list of all your assimilators, I would share them with you, but maybe one would be useful. Because you'd go, oh, doesn't apply to my class, doesn't apply to my class, doesn't apply to my class. These have to be really contextually driven. And so this one was, they really were two graduate students in the MA and TESOL program from the Middle East. They roomed together off campus. They usually walk wherever they need to go. At 9 p.m., after a night class in January, a female classmate from the U.S. says, it's very cold tonight. Would you like me to give you a ride home? The women reply, oh no, we like to walk. The classmate says, okay, and leaves. The women are shocked, and when they tell the story, it's very funny. shocked that she doesn't insist as they had intended to, except the second time the ride was offered. On the cold walk home, they decided the classmate really didn't mean the offer. So you always have a scenario. Then what you do is you present 3 options to explain it. Which of the following could explain the classmate's behavior? A, she didn't really mean the offer. Everyone knows Americans are direct and not very polite. B, she didn't really mean the offer. She wanted to get home herself and was glad the women didn't accept. C, she meant the offer, but she thought the women really wanted to walk. Pick one. It's not a graded exam.
See?
See? See? Yeah, most people can pick the correct answer right away. This is not meant to be a trick. This is actually meant to be a setup for the explanations that follow, because that's where the real we're going to share these norms come in. So what you do is you give an explanation for every answer. For answer A, she really didn't mean the offer. Everyone knows Americans are direct and not very polite. That's not the best answer. Explanation. Most Americans think of themselves as polite. In fact, most people from almost every country think of themselves as polite. Like, in this case, the speaker may have refrained from insisting for another reason. Answer B. She didn't really mean the offer. She wanted to get home herself and was glad the women didn't accept. This is not the best answer. In American culture, insisting or repeating an offer can be perceived as impolite or as pushy. So there may be a reason that the classmate didn't insist, but she likely meant it. Answer C. She meant the offer, but she thought the women really wanted to walk. This is the best answer. When the women responded, "Oh no, we like to walk," they were signaling their independence. Respect of independence is a highly valued trait in U.S. culture, and their classmate was being respectful of their wishes. Now, to avoid this issue in the future, this is the part that came out of it and started my research in assimilators again. There is a phrase in American English which signals if a person were to offer again, you would accept. Can you guys think of what it is?
Are you sure?
That or a paraphrase. I don't want to put you in any trouble. Are you sure? I don't want you to go out of your way. What you do is you throw it back as, I don't want to impose on you, which is a signal. All it means is, if you offer again, I'm likely to accept. That's what it literally means in American English. And so that's how assimilators work in general. This works well for syllabi because syllabi are pretty much a foreign country anyway. So what we do is we pick, let's see, let me go back. So this is the format: scenario of a problem, 3 or 4 options to account for it, explanation of each possible option. If you look now on page 3 of the simulator, you'll see one that I use for, this is also for my international students, so because that's where I come from, for questions and answers. Because that's a problem I have a lot in class, is when is it appropriate to ask a question? Now you could tell them that. You could say, here's when it's appropriate to ask a question. But most people do already. The question is, how do I get students to understand? So we made this a simulator. Lee is an international student in an English class at an American state university. After class one day, he went up to his instructor to ask a question about his paper. But the instructor told Lee to come to his office during office hours and then left the room. Lee has decided that the instructor does not want to help him. Which of the following could explain the instructor's behavior? A, the instructor did not know the answer to Lee's question. B, the instructor was trying to delay helping Lee and assumed he would not bother him further. C, the instructor did not have time to answer Lee's question. C, yeah, and students get this too. C, but so we go A. You don't need me to read these to you. Take a minute and read A and B. And in A, for example, that comes from an actual culture. In Chinese culture, teachers do not admit that they don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, even you're like, oh, what, really? Because I admit I don't know every day, like 7 times before breakfast. That's right. But this is very shocking to students about professor behavior because, well, I don't know, let's look that up. Whereas this is where they say the American students, oh, they understand. They understand, they just know what's going on because they're used to this behavior from their teachers. They're used to it in high school. Let's all discover, I don't know what, the atom, like somebody else hasn't discovered the atom, but we're going to work through it. You'll ask a question I don't know, let's go look it up. That is completely different in most other countries. But it could be different, even, like you could say, oh, well, this is high school. What happens is, even students who go to American high schools, what they're told is, college is different. College is different. College would be so different. And so they get into college and they're like, well, I'm not going to ask the teacher because the teacher will know everything. I'm not going to admit I don't know because now I'm in college. Same model. Same model. And so this is where in your particular class, if you know students have questions and they aren't asking, then we think about how to do an assimilator about it. For your particular class. And C is the right answer for this. Instructors often have more than one class to teach or other job duties which prevent them from staying after a class meeting ends. Office hours are the days, times which instructors set aside especially to see students and answer questions.
So, how do you, you just said if you know students have questions, it's a good time for, how do you implement that? And I'm particularly thinking in Canvas, I can't just throw a question out there one day. They're not all on the same page, literally.
Literally. But you could, what we did, there are a couple ways to use an assimilator. It depends on how your class works. One is that I actually do put them online for my students to read, and I said, I'm going to talk about this in the first 3 minutes of class. Because
I don't have first 3 minutes to talk about anything.
So you're talking about just an online class or no time at all?
It's just an online class.
What you could do, then there are a couple things you can do. One is you can put it up as a kind of survey so that students could just take it if they want. And it's one more thing to refer them to. Hey, everybody. And like I said, you're going to have to, at the beginning of class, orient them towards where you want them to look for answers. Like, for example, you can say, if you come to me with a question, if you email me a question, let's go just online. You email me a question, I will happily answer that question with another question. Have you looked in the syllabus?
So my challenge is that I don't get people asking questions. It feels very disconnected. I wish that I had FaceTime because I know that they don't know what they're doing. And I can't seem to reach out to them or get them to reach out to me to clarify things. They just go on their own, and when I get the assignment, I'm like, yeah, you didn't get it.
Right.
Well, I've done a couple things with different, because way in the days of Blackboard, when we didn't have any synchronous options at all, I used to just have an FAQ. Like, send me any question, and if it's a question I think everybody has, I'll post the answer. So I'll say, student A said, how do I know when part 1 is due? Here's my answer. And so I just post it, and students, and I post it now, students get notification whenever you post something. So at least there might be that. FAQ, this, that, because they know what FAQs are now. The other thing I do, and I don't know if this is possible for you or not, is I actually have an online office hour.
Yeah, I have office hours. They don't ever.
And they never ask, and so that's what you. And at some point, this is once again about professor behavior. This used to be my comedy routine at the beginning. I would say, this is a really tough class. I have these office hours so students can ask questions, and nobody's asking, and I'm so lonely. I pick up the phone, I listen to see if there's a dial tone. There's definitely a dial tone to the phone. I tell them the stories about how bored I am because I have these office hours. We've done research that says student perception, student reality, you guys know this, are totally different sometimes. And part of what we can do is bring their perception in line with ours. There was a guy, when I first came here to work, let me make sure I'm not digressing. Nope, okay. There was a guy when I first came here to work. He had office hours from when he wasn't in class, from 8 until 4:30 every day. Every day he was in his office. And they asked students, teacher availability, average. And so when I started doing this comedy routine, no more students came to my office hours than before, but my perception of, yes, if I have a question, I know I can ask the teacher, went way up. And so that's what this is for. It's not just building your syllabus so the university is happy. This is absolutely crucial for students to understand. Week 1. This is absolutely crucial for students to understand week 8. So I'm going to do something to make it, I'm going to put it out there, I'm going to hope, and that's what you really need to say. Online, do you have a thing where say, online classes can feel disconnected? If you think you can just do your work and you totally, here's how to check to see if it matches the assignment. If it doesn't, here is how to get hold of me. And here is how to ask. I mean, we have to do that sort of orienting now because our student demographics, as we learned in the first session, are really changing.
Do you do that? I never know what the best method for communicating is. Do you do that in a video that you post? Do you do that through an email? Do you just write that in text on the assignment page? I mean, how do you catch them?
I emailed my students. I taught online. In the summers I've taught online, but this was my first normal school semester teach online. And I emailed them probably like week 5 because I had 0 questions and quite a few poor performers. And I said, maybe you're unfamiliar with the online learning environment, knowing that most of them had taken multiple online But I was like, or with me as an instructor, and I had a serious car accident over the summer. So I said, and I've had a serious car accident, and my brain is not firing on all cylinders just yet, so I could have missed emails. But please, if you email me and I don't get in touch with you within 48 hours, here's my office phone number. And if that doesn't work, here's the department admin. She can find me every day. She knows where I'm at. And then I had like 3 students email me. I mean, that's out of 30-something. But I'm like, well, it went from 0 in 5 weeks to 3. And I actually had one student come to campus. She's from a different campus. Came to this campus to come and find me because her dad had died and she got stuck. But she was like, I understand that you had a hard time. So now I feel like you might hear me out on my hard time. I was like, well, that was very thoughtful. Like she could understand the kind of the culture of having a significant, emergency.
That you said it became.
Right. Yeah, not just the computer responding to them.
And I do emails a lot just because that tends to be the way I do it, but people are having really good success with videos. Those short videos that you do on Canvas, they're just so easy. Like you said, it's that human thing. When you struggle, when they, it's like students don't know. When you have that one big problem, we have a whole procedure for that. But you have to tell me you're having a problem. If you have a question, that's what you can say. I'm hearing 0 questions. We have 20 people in this class and 0 questions, and I am concerned. So let me go over again how to ask questions, just to make sure. And here is how to check. You don't have to just do it and send it off and hope for the best. Here is how I would do it. In fact, I would use like a little PowerPoint, and I'd say, assignment number 1, clear introduction. Where's my introduction? Okay, there it is. Assignment, 2 with 3. I do it 3 I do it for morphology a lot. I say, here's how to check to see if your homework's accurate. Yes?
I think if you post an announcement, it should go to their email as well if they have the correct notification to go. So that way, the announcement goes and they still get it in the email. And in terms of them feeling distant, in terms of them not knowing how to do certain assignments, sometimes you may not have to require the synchronous session because, it's an online class and the university may have those rules. But what I find is that students appreciate if you set up a session and you call it whatever you want to call it, but it should have something to do with clarifying a particular assignment. So if you set up just a normal lecture or something, they won't necessarily come because they probably could think they get it otherwise. But if the session is set up to clarify a particular assignment, you may get a couple of students coming into that synchronous session. And if you record that session, then those who are genuinely not able to come and would have liked to see it, and that also, they will put that on your evaluation too. because you try to reach out to them.
I didn't know we could do that.
Well, it's an idea.
Can we do that on campus? Set up a synchronous session. I didn't
Well, what you would use is whatever web conferencing platform the university uses.
Okay.
Like in my case, I would have used Zoom because that's what IU had. I don't know what they have here, but you use the
Collaborate.
Collaborate.
It's still Blackboard Collaborate, but we're
Oh,
switching next year.
So that's how we do it.
So that's how you do it. You say,
I
this is
didn't know we
how.
could do it.
Oh, sure. It's open to everybody. It's open to everybody. But you're right. You can.
Yeah.
This is a session. You can log in. I'm going to record it. If you missed it, you can hear it. Students love that.
Okay.
Yeah, because what happened, they will come in because you're clarifying the assignment, and if they don't, at least you did have the session.
Yeah.
And there are some students that generally can't come, but they will be able to log into it because there are certain things that you, based on your experience, you would have seen that students tend to have trouble with this. And for those sessions, you have kind of an idea of what you'll cover, just have a plan, just a very brief, loose plan, so that if only one or two shows up, you can still go and record something and say, and then they will have it. So,
And that also works if they're doing, I don't know, like problem sets, or there's a certain type of chapter, and they always have trouble in this type of theory. Like in my case, it would be politeness theory. There's something called negative politeness and positive politeness, and students always get negative politeness wrong. So you would do a clarifying session on that. Clarification, how to tell the difference between negative politeness because negative politeness is still polite. That messes with them. But that sort of thing, because you know your stuff. You know your stuff. I'm so glad you're here from there.
yeah, and that comment that you just made reminded me of, research that was done in the syllabus. Even with, they did a research and they looked at what was considered by a student as friendly versus unfriendly. And you'd be surprised to see that those polite statements that the instructor would place on their syllabus, like, if you need to contact me, please do so in my office hours, versus, please reach out to me. Just a different way of telling the student that really you want them to reach out to me, versus, if you need to, you may contact me. So just a slight change in words.
Yeah, or if there's a unit, they say, remember, I have office hours all this week, all next week. You can email me a question. However your policy is, remind them just as it starts to get hard, even though we've gone off for it. And that's 30 seconds. But the onlines are really tricky, but they're here to stay.
Yeah.
They're here to stay, basically. So that's really good. So can you think of a specific, is it generally not asking questions? Is it not asking questions in the first assignment? Is it not asking questions for a major test? Because it's
generally not asking questions.
Can you think about the first time in the semester when you notice they aren't asking questions? Is it after the first quiz you said something about their assignments are wrong?
I'm changing my course again. So I'm doing quizzes now for every module, in addition to assignments. So it's usually the first assignment that some people really get it, a few don't get it at all, and those few who don't get it at all don't get it at all throughout the semester.
So if you're not sure what to say, in terms of, you've already talked about, here's how to ask me questions before, it's clear in the syllabus, and you want to do another session, just like we've been talking, you could do like a little assimilator as the clarification session. Let me share with you a scenario that has happened before. So-and-so got a D on his first assignment. Here's how he did it. He's surprised and has decided that the professor's really mean. So which are the possible, run them through it. It takes 5 minutes. Which are the possible outcomes? And then say, here's why C is the right answer. I always make C. You can move around if you want. Like I said, it's not an actual test. It's just a way to get them thinking. But it has to be incredibly contextual. So if it's after the first quiz, make it, or after the first assignment, make it then. Make the scenario then. How about for you?
The first time is maybe the third assignment. Normally, the first assignment, half the class doesn't have the textbook. And so they don't do it. And then the third assignment is, well, based on the first assignment, now create a SMART goal pertaining to your health. Well, the first one is an assessment of your health from the textbook, and so the third one is now you have a goal to work on this semester, reflecting on that one. And here's an example of a SMART goal, here's an infographic on a SMART goal, here's a SMART goal that I wrote. Please use this template, and I get a goal for S, a goal for M, a goal for A, a goal for R, a goal for T, and none of them have to do with their health from assignment 1. And so at that point, you can determine who's going to get a C or below.
Would we have actual artifacts from classes? This is an old trick we used to do in Comp 101 in my grad school days, is we would show them a failing assignment and make it a scenario. So we would say, this is a SMART goal that gets an F. Why did this get an F? The teacher is me, But you can say, it didn't match page 447 in the textbook, blah, blah, blah. If the student had read that, the format would have been totally different, or looked at the template. Really, show them, because we talk a lot about, this is our tendency. Professors treat every assignment sometimes like a test, because what we're really doing is just getting evidence of their learning. But say, here's a really bad example. We always show them the good examples, but we never show them the examples they tend to come up with at first, and then show them how to make them into good examples. But you can say that. This is the D, we give them 2. This is the A SMART goal, and this is the E SMART goal. What's the difference?
Can we do that without asking permission of the students?
Well, I usually make up my own. Or I use them from past semesters and I modify them enough so there is so I go, this one left out all details, so I'll take a SMART goal and I'll write one without any details. It's actually easier to do than you think. Is to say, but we do get, for composition, we get permission from our students to anonymize snippets of their work if they can't be. But mostly I just change them. Yes?
I was thinking too that depending on the nature of the assignment, Canvas allows for peer review and it allows for rubrics.
Mm-hmm. True.
So if an instructor can do both or either. So if you set up a rubric with some of the criteria that you are looking for in the grading, and that the students use that rubric to do a peer review of their peers, then by the time you get the assignment, you get a better product to grade. So that's one thing which ties into what you were saying with them assessing the work.
That's if students do peer review, but it seems to me they don't use the rubric if it's not a peer review thing.
It's been my experience that if I give them a rubric, I have noticed this. I've never been a friend of a rubric before, but I started implementing them last semester, and when I did see better work coming from them because then they knew my expectations and knew how they were being assessed.
For an online class or for
both? Yeah.
I was going to say, for my in-class, it works better.
Yeah.
For my online, I don't see that the rubric.
It's interesting because it's right there.
Right.
It's not like they have to go search for it. It's right there. And I think, one of my, there's 2 standards things. They have to follow APA citation and punctuation, spelling, grammar mistakes. And easy points.
Yes.
Easy points. And those are it's like,
and some people, I think that's how a lot of times you have the writing course, that's how the peer review comes in, because I think one of the best value of a peer review process is when the students have looked at a couple of papers from their peer and then going back and looking at theirs.
Yeah, we do that for in all our writing intensive classes, and it's crucial. It's crucial on campus, but it's a little, the peer reviews a touch clunky on Canvas at the moment.
I just don't have time in my course to do that.
And you have to do it when you have a much longer window, because you can't really give students a 12-hour turnaround on a peer review. They need a week. And especially if they're not used to doing it, then they need some orientation. But once you get that going, this is all about building stuff in the front, and then it just kind of runs. You'll always have those assimilators. You'll always have that scenario ready. And sometimes I just toss them out orally, and I say, okay, so here's a student, they've got 9 homework exams, student has turned in 7. Student wants to know, how's this going to affect her midterm grade? what does she do? And then, I mean, obviously, I'm pretty comfortable doing these as warm-ups or whatever, but yeah, they work. They work for those but you make it as real and make it as specific as possible, and you're going to find it very, I think, get some pop from it.
So when you put the explanations, you put all three of them, so just like this.
Yep.
So they read through the whole thing and
Yep.
then they can see it.
Yep. And in Canvas, they of course have those little explanation boxes where you can cut and paste it. So I just type it out in Word. And just run through it. Sometimes I make it a great quiz. Lately I haven't been doing that, but I could go back to it at any time. Yep. But that's really the challenge. I mean, there's just so much to do. I can give you only the most general of things because you know your class, you know your content, and you know the potential problems after you've taught it twice. Once, it's all my fault. Second time, yours. That's what I tell them. First time I teach it, everything's my fault. Second time I teach it, now I know what you're doing. But anyway, that's kind of, it's a pretty fun technique to do. The students are also pretty much engaged. They like puzzles. They like puzzles a lot. And if they like puzzles, especially if you give them a choice, and they'll go, oh, C, and you go, good, why? And they're like, what? Like, why? It's always about why. This is us, the world of ideas. We just don't have a letter, we have an explanation. And so that gets me engaged, I think, a little more. But our challenges are cut out for us in large online classes, where students come with very different expectations. Okay. I think we're getting close to the end. Anybody want to talk about specific? I think that was my one. This is my one for now. This is my general one. The other ones have to do with morphology problems.
I have a question regarding your syllabus quiz. I know it's used often.
Yeah, sure.
Do you typically use open-ended questions, closed-ended questions on your syllabus quiz?
On my syllabus quiz, I use closed-ended questions, almost always multiple choice or fill in the blank or very short answer. And for my syllabus quiz, all answers can literally be found on the syllabus. So it's mostly about giving some slight motivation to students to scan that syllabus for particular parts of information. Because now, and I'm glad that we're spelling out things like academic dishonesty, but some of that's a little too wordy even for me. I mean, so to motivate the students to dig down a little, it's always very factual, very literal, and often word for word.
And some have suggested that having open-ended questions may even help them to dig further too. Let's say, for example, you ask a question saying, of the activities or the objectives in this class, which one do you think might pose the greatest challenge for you? So that begs them to literally look over the objective and to really think. So that's a little bit more than just saying true or false or, what's my instructor's name or those sort of things. And that way they have to literally think about it. Another question then, based on the challenges, how do you think you could overcome those challenges? What's your plan? So that way they think a little bit more serious about the class. So some people have suggested a couple of those open-ended questions as well.
I usually ask those on my question cards to not assign any point value to it at all, but I like that suggestion. It's almost always, if I do them in the syllabus quiz, it's almost, in terms of challenges, it's procedural. So what do you think your biggest challenge is going to be in this class? What do you think your biggest, because that also tells me something about them. Like students say, I'm going to have a baby in 3 months. It's like, wow, that is really good to know. It is excellent for a professor to know that because the professor can work with you to plan. Or, I've always had trouble, or I'm an SDS student and you'll be getting something from the disability student's office soon or whatever. I do like to give them a chance to just tell me stuff, and hopefully they feel comfortable enough knowing that I'll keep that only between us. But I like that idea of making it on the floor objectives, which one is going to be the toughest. Of course, that requires the professor to actually use the objectives, and not all of them do. But I like that accountability as well.
So at the beginning,
Say it.
hold up, there's too many things coming in my head. Hold on. So on one of my evaluations, I had a student say, I found that when I read the text before I did the assignment, it worked better.
That's every semester that I've been teaching, I've got that on mine. Like, I'm glad that you give the quizzes, because I give quizzes before I even lecture on an assignment. I'm glad you give these quizzes, I've actually learned something. And I'm like, oh my.
So, like you said, the first run through was all my fault. The second run through, it's their fault. And so the third time, I wrote out at the beginning of the course a list of expectations from this course, from your professor, of you. So things like you will read the text, you will turn your assignments in on time, you will this is graduate level, but I'm having to list all of these expectations. And then at the end, what I've done is there's a little paragraph that says I've read these expectations and understand that I will be held accountable for them, blah, blah, blah. And I ask them to copy and paste that and send it to me as an acknowledgement that they...
I put that in a quiz. I do that every semester.
I was going to ask you.
I make it as a quiz. I make the whatever acknowledgement that I want them to sign. I make it as a quiz because I can see when it populates. I can see who hasn't done it.
So, do you ask questions about it?
Well, no. It's really interesting because when you phrase the expectations, there's two ways students will go, and you probably know the research, so you can jump in any time. The students will go, oh, I'm going to read these really carefully, and then I want to sign my name to show that I have read them all, and everything will be good.
Those
and then
are the A students.
Then there's the other group of students that goes, oh God, I can't bear to hear, I'm so afraid, and they never read it. Or they just skip down, or they skip down, and then they sign it.
Yep.
And so the question is, how do we make students engage? The one way is what you'll call the hammer way, right? Beat them with the hammer if they don't do it. They fail, we make it a quiz, we yell at them for doing it. Those are the tried and true methods. The other way is like the carrot way. So a carrot way, just in this, and I'm just totally making this up off the top of my head, is to say, these are my expectations for the class. And the last part, and I would make it into a quiz. The first question would be, you have to sign this, and these are my expectations. I would add another open-ended question, and I would say, list 3 expectations you have for me.
Oh, I like that.
Because they're going to say stuff like, please give me feedback. Because they always do. The number one problem we're having with students is that they feel for some reason they don't get feedback. Now, one explanation is they don't find it. It's there, they don't look. But there are teachers, and I'm coming, I am a chair of the department, so I'm often taking the hammer to my faculty. There are faculty who occasionally will give a quiz or a test or a paper and hold on to it for 8 weeks. I mean, that is useless pedagogically. And so I want to get them, and I want to, if you're going to make your students accountable, how are you showing them that you are accountable?
Well, I actually, part of that expectation is what I believe my behavior should be towards them. So I list all things like that.
But let them go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
Let them go ahead and say it. What are your expectations for me? You'll be surprised. And there will be, some students will say ridiculous things, but for the most part, they'll take it seriously, and it'll tell you a lot about who they are.
Is this a graded quiz that you do?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, I'm a real 1%er grader for these types of quiz. Like, I'll give you a % for this and a % for that, and then I'll adjust every other quiz. So if you don't do it, it doesn't help you. But if you do it, if you don't do it, you need to do it because there's only a plus and never a minus for that sort of thing. So I sometimes hold them separate from the normal 100%. And sometimes I'll drop it to half if I'm doing 2 of them, because I try not to give more than 1% wiggle room, because that's where I would have wanted to round up anyway. Okay. So the students think they're winning, everybody thinks they're winning, everybody's more engaged, that sort of thing. I think sometimes we are afraid to talk to the students. We're afraid to ask them, what do you think? Why is this hard? What are your questions? The same reason they're afraid to pose questions to us. And the older I get, the less afraid I am of it. And it never goes wrong. I mean, every semester I'm getting braver and braver to just lay it out that here's why I'm doing this. That 11%, I love it. I love it. 11%. If you miss it, you'll drop by a letter grade. So show up. It's important. But you can only tell them a certain number of things that are important. So you have to decide which ones those are. Everything cannot be equally important. The same way students cannot highlight every line on the textbook page and expect that to help.
I have a discussion board post in my health class because it's part of the book, but it's about how can communication between faculty and students enhance the learning environment or something. And you can see the spectrum of maturity in the students' responses. I've had quite a few that are like, faculty are never available. It's always a negative, like always our fault why they haven't been successful in whatever class they may have taken. And then you get the more mature student. And I just want to say thank you to whoever taught them beforehand, because they gave that student like empowered by their communication. So the feedback from the student is, if you communicate with the faculty member, if you let the faculty member know what you're going through, if you contact the faculty member, if you just reach out, they're like, I've never had a faculty member not want to help me. And so there's always a few of them, and it's nice because they'll actually kind of argue back to maybe some of the younger, more negative-minded students on the discussion board. And I don't have to kind of like say, well, from my perspective, I feel like I'm always helpful. You know, I don't like, somebody already did that for me. And it gives kind of like a calmness to the conversation where it's not teacher-student, it's student-student. And then there are some, I say, if you don't feel comfortable posting to the discussion board, it is still a requirement that I get a response from you. So you may submit it as an assignment or an email. So that way not everybody wants to share their experience, but it gives me a little bit of guidance to kind of who I'm speaking to. Because
I think you're bringing up a really good point about, and especially in online classes, but it happens in face-to-face classes too, is this, they say something negative, that I'm interpreting it negative, and I want to fight back. This is the paradox of teaching. I don't know the solution, except to think about the paradox. And one is, to be a really good teacher, you must invest your time. So when they say you're never available, you're thinking, do I need to have my cell phone on all the time? Do I need to be checking 24? I mean, we react very personally because we invest so much in this design. We really super care about whether our students are learning, and we show that through these documents and these assignments and the feedback. But the paradox is, it's not about us. It's never about us. Students will say to my face, you did this. I'm like, I didn't do that. I didn't do it. They say you, and we react and the more practice you say, I'm just stepping away from it and saying, I'm not gonna engage. I feel attacked, I feel defensive, I'm gonna go and stew for a day. That's why email's so great. I say expect in 48 hours, because what I don't tell them is, because if you make me mad, you don't want to hear my first response. You want me to go to sleep, and you want me to calm down, and then I will give you a really good response that is totally professional. But what I know is I need a little time out. If something sets me off, the only thing I can do is shut it down and say, in a day, I'll think about this again. And it works. It works. It takes a little practice. But that's the sort of thing, because they'll say weird things, like, I sent you an email at 3 a.m. So I tell them, I don't check my email on the weekends. That's not strictly true. I usually check it at least once during the weekend, but I'll say, if you send it to me during the weekend, I know that's when you do your work. I know that's really important. Here's the trade-off. The things aren't due on Monday morning. There's the trade-off. I'll make them due on Tuesday. So you have all of Monday to tweak it or do whatever. Just tell them what's going on, and it works.
Right. I have a 24-hour policy. After receiving a grade, the student has to wait 24 hours before contacting me to schedule an appointment or come into my office hours. And I say that's for your benefit, because you're upset. And I don't want my professional opinion of you to change because of how you, in an emotional state, handle this matter. So take 24 hours, you can come back, but realize I'll have a much better opinion of you, and I can write a letter of recommendation that will suit you instead of your emotional turmoil that you had, which I understand. But give yourself some time to think about how you're going to come and talk to me. And they hold each other accountable. Like, somebody's like, I'm going to go, you better wait 24 hours, she's not going to talk to you. And I don't. If they come in, I'm like, you got to wait. And I hold them to that because I don't want to have my opinion of them changed because every test they come in bickering over 1 point. So I'm like, just take 24 hours and think if that 1 point is really worth your complaint. So, and I think that helped. The same thing for us. Like, I'm not going to jump your case over an email you sent me.
I like that. I like that a lot. I may do that, especially with graded pupils. Yes, yeah. That's okay. But and the university has that policy. It's like students come in, I'm really mad, I shouldn't have gotten this grade. Put it in writing, and I'll start the process. And by the time they put it in writing, it's a more articulate, more delineated, less emotional appeal.
And it's in my syllabus, because I have communication. My last part is communication. So face-to-face, I changed it. I took your advice. Instead of saying, if you need me, just say, please come and see me. And then for email communication, I give them an example. Subject line, EXS 403, Dr. McGrawy.